Stargirl! Episode 11! We've abandoned summer school, people, because we ain't been in summer school in like 3-4 episodes, and apparently they still running with the summer school theme, but we will call this one, because I'm not calling all these episodes summer school, I keep telling you that. We're gonna call this episode The Shadowlands. So in this episode, because remember in the last episode, it took place where Courtney got sucked into the Shadowlands, and now she's in the Shadowlands. You know, you can tell because everything's in black and white. So she's in the Shadowlands. She's looking around. She's looking all dazed and confused, like she don't know what happens. And then she ends up seeing the diner, and then because it's basically Blue Valley. The entire Shadowlands was Blue Valley because that's what she sees in her mind. You know, like that's the image of it that she has in her mind. But then when she goes inside the diner, we get a nice surprise. We get a lot of the return. We get a lot of the actors who played characters in season 1 returned for this episode in season 2. Like Joey, he returned along with his parents, because remember his daddy died too. And you know, and it was nice to see them back again, because I felt that Joey got a raw deal, and even his dad, like they never should have killed him that quickly. Joey was just like, oh, you know, like, welcome to Blue Valley, and then, you know, he was like, my name is Joey the Magnificent, or Joey the Great, and then he was just like, oh, let me show you a trick, pick a card, which was the same trick he did to her in, you know, in the season, well, it was like the second or third episode. In the beginning of the season, in season 1, the same card trick episode, and as we remember in that card trick episode, because they even showed us this, when he did the trick the first time, he actually did it wrong. But Courtney lied and told him that he was right just to make him feel better. So then when she pulled the card again, he asked her, he was like, is this your card? And then she just paused and she didn't say anything. And then he goes, what, you gonna lie to me again? And I was like, oh shit. Like he's like how he knew that she lied the first time. And she was like, no, Joey. And then she ended up getting blasted into another room that took her to the school. And then we got the fiddler, the fiddler's mom, the principal, she's back. And I was just like, because they shouldn't have killed her either. Like, you know, her and her son, they were both there. And then she only had one line. She was just like, she's like, oh, new students are always trouble. But it was nice to see her back as well. So then, you know, I said after she said her one line, Cindy shows up. And then when Cindy shows up, she sees Courtney, and then automatically she goes after Courtney, and the two of them start fighting. And then there was a moment where Cindy had cut Courtney. She sliced her by the arm, and then Courtney started bleeding. When Cindy realized that she was bleeding, she was like, holy shit, you're real. And Courtney was like, what do you mean real? And then she was just like, you know, these people that are trapped in here, they don't bleed. And, you know, it's sad. Like, honestly, I kind of wish that they were real, and it was just a situation where the shade just sucked everybody up into the Shadowlands, as opposed to these characters like actually being gone, because a lot of them, you know, were very good to the show. You know, so they're talking, they're having a conversation about, you know, why they're trapped here, how they got here. You know, Cindy's telling her that this is where Mephisto was created. You know, he thrives off energy, he thrives off darkness, and she said that that's how he was born. Like, he was born from true darkness, and she learned that on the island when she went to go, you know, like research the crystal. And then she kind of like flipped it, and then she was just like, oh, this is all your fault, you know, for why I'm trapped here. And then Courtney was like, bitch. You know, because Cindy actually had the nerve. She was just like, oh, because of what you did, you know, like she said this is your fault that I'm here because you let me go. And even me in that moment, if I was Courtney, I'd have smacked the living fire out of Cindy, because even Cindy was like, yo, I tried to save you. She was like, she was like, you failed. You know, but then, you know, like, you know, Courtney was just like, yo, this is all your fault because you're the one that tried to create a new ISA to come after me and my family. She was like, you're the one that, you know, that broke Eclipso out of the jewel, you know, from the beginning. You brought him here, like you brought him into our lives just so you can get your petty revenge. And then she was like, and then you killed your father anyway. So she was like, don't blame that shit on me. And then, you know, then Cindy was just like, I'll kill him again, because she said that Eclipso tries to create a prison for you where your biggest fears, you know, like come to life. But she said, I actually enjoy killing my dad. She said, hell, she looked at Courtney and she was like, I've even killed you a bunch of times. And she was like, I got some satisfaction from that. But she said, but, you know, between killing Courtney, between killing my dad, she told Mephisto, she was just like, yo, you can't break me, bitch. You know, she was like, you can't break me. She was like, bring it on. I'll take whatever you can give me. And then he brought up her mom, and I was like, oh, low blow. Low blow. And then Cindy took the bait. And then when Cindy saw her mom, she got all emotional. And then like the hooded drone guys snatched her up and they took her to a different place. Courtney was then like freaking out. She was trying to get her back. And then while Courtney was trying to get Cindy back, Dr. Mid-Nite showed up and brought her to, you know, to where he was. There was a moment where Courtney was out of the town illusion, and she was actually looking at the actual Shadowlands. And then that's when Dr. McNider snatched her up, and then she was like, what was that place filled with dust and and darkness? And he was like, those are the real Shadowlands. But he said Eclipso plays tricks on your mind and makes you see things that isn't really there. He said, but look through the goggles. And then when she looked through the goggles, she just saw like a barren wasteland full of full of shadow and dust. And he was like, this is where we really are. But he's like, but you just can't see it because of that. And then Courtney asked him, she was like, well, if that's the case, if it'll show you something else other than this, why do you keep the goggles on? Why don't you just, like embrace the illusion so you can have something nice to look at? And then he said that every time he takes off the glasses, all he sees is his daughter. And that was sad. That was actually sad. But then, through their conversation, he said that there is a way to get out, but, they're going to need some help. And then it takes us back to the house where, because in the beginning of the episode, Pat and Jenny, yeah, that was her name, Jenny. Pat and Jenny, they came back defeated, because, they went to a different town when Courtney got sucked up. So they went back to, their town defeated. And, Barbara was there. Barbara was crying. Beth was crying. Beth was talking to Jenny. She was saying how, like, she failed. And then Jenny said that she failed. And then that's when Dr. McNider had reached out to Beth, through the goggles and told her that, hey, Courtney's actually alive and she's here with me. So Beth and Jenny end up telling Pat and Barbara that. And that's when they told Jenny, so they were like, oh, you can use your ring to locate the shade, because Dr. McNider said that the shade actually can bring them back from the Shadowlands, because he's the one that sent Dr. McNider there to begin with. So Jenny uses her ring, and then this model of the town came up, and it had 2 black smoke signals, and it said that that's where the shade was. And then I thought, what a very odd thing to do. So they said Beth and Jenny to go to one smoke, and then Barbara and Pat, they went to the other set of smoke. The set of smoke that Barbara and Pat went to was in a movie theater. And while they were trying to talk about how they can bring Courtney back, Mike actually came out and said, let me just go find Thunderbolt, and everybody ignored him. So I'm like, okay, that's going to be a thing, because in the season finale, when Eclipso's ready to do his worst, Mike's going to be the one to go find the black kid who got the Thunderbolt pen, and Mike's going to bring that kid back to save the day, because he brought him up and like everybody just act like he ain't say nothing. So, so they go into this movie theater, and then there's the shade, because remember in the last episode, after they put the crystal back together and it summoned Eclipso and the shade got his power back, Eclipso then broke the crystal so it can never be used against him. And the shade said that when that happened, it automatically like took his power away from him as well. So he said that he's just using whatever power he has left to keep himself alive, but he said he actually is dying. And then that's when Barbara reached out to him. She was like, you better save my daughter, you son of a bitch. And then he was like, don't threaten me, Barbara. Then she was just like, he was like, or I'll kill you. And then she was like, kill me. I don't want to live without my daughter. And then he was like, damn it, now I feel bad. And then he got up and he was like, you remind me of my sister. I just wish they would just tell us that his sister was Dr. McNider's wife and the little girl who died was his niece and their child. I wish it's like they're tiptoeing around that whole, because Dr. McNider even had a whole conversation where he told Courtney that after his daughter died, when he went back to his house, the shade was at his house. The two of them cracked open a bottle of something, and they got drunk all night and became friends. Why would the shade do that for some random child? And then they tried to mask it because they were like, oh, he felt guilty, but because he knew Eclipso was around and he didn't try to stop Eclipso. But y'all skip it over the fact that that's his sister and his niece just died. So I wish they'd bring that up. I'm tired of them tiptoeing, or it's one of those things where we gotta put the pieces together, but I figured that out like day one. So now the shade, they end up convincing the shade. The shade has his hand up, he's using his power, and then he breaks open through the picture screen, he breaks open a doorway between the real world and the Shadowlands, and then Courtney and Dr. McNider see it. Barbara's like, come on, Courtney, jump through. And then Courtney, that's when it hit Courtney, she's like, oh shit, I forgot about Cindy. So then she runs to go get Cindy. And then Barbara's like, no, honey. And then she goes after Cindy. When she finds, before she found Cindy, Eclipso ran up on her. And then he was just like, oh, you rude. Because Cindy had said to Courtney earlier in the episode that you need to embrace your hate, which, and she said that you're a goody two-shoes and you like everybody. But she said you need to embrace your hate. That's the only way that you're going to survive. But she also said that Eclipso feeds on hate and he feeds off depression. So Eclipso was trying to bring that out of Courtney. she went to, he showed her a picture of Yolanda sitting on the bed looking all depressed, and I'm just like, why are you mad? Because like according to your parents, you can't leave the house anyway. So there's a picture. He showed Yolanda, then he showed Rick in prison, and then she got all upset, and then she was like, oh, you ruined their lives, Courtney. And then she was like, you don't like me, do you? And then Courtney was like, I hate you. And then Eclipso smiled because he was like, gotcha, bitch. He got her to use the H word, and I don't know how that's going to affect Courtney going forward, but because it's like he was clearly trying to get her to embrace the hate. And as soon as she admitted that she hates him and he smiled, we never found out the results of why he wanted her to do that. Like, we never found out the results of why it was so important to him. But it does, I mean, it did mean something, but we'll see if it means something in the last 2 episodes, the show. Because who knows, maybe Courtney has the hate in her system now, and it's going to be hard to put, to reel her in and, like, bring her back. She found Cindy, and then she broke Cindy out, like Cindy killed her dad again. And then they showed the image of when she was a little girl, she accidentally stabbed her mom. And then, the actual Cindy, like, she was talking to her mom and she apologized and she told her mom she loved her, whatever. And then Cindy was like, we got to go. I found a way out. And then she was like, leave me alone. But then when she was like, oh, shit, you found a way out. Then she was like, peace, moms. And then she dipped on her mama. The 3 of them ran back. The Shade, he's like bleeding from the nose. And then the 3 of them jumped through the portal and they end up back, like in the real world. And then after that, the Shade collapsed, and then he was just like, oh, Dr. Mid-Nite, my brother. He was just like, I'm sorry. Because even then, when Pat had told the Shade earlier, he was like, oh, Dr. Mid-Nite, he's in the Shadowlands, that's where you put him. And then he was like, oh no, if I knew he was alive. He was like, if I knew he was alive in the Shadowlands. And then Pat was like, because you wasn't looking. So he was like, you wasn't looking. And then he apologized. That's why the Shade apologized. He was like, I'm sorry for not looking for you, brother. And then he was like, it's okay. And then Dr. Mid-Nite was like, it's okay. And then he was like, Barbara, tell everybody that I died, a hero. And then he turned into smoke, and then he disappeared. And I did not feel bad in that moment because, first of all, the Shade is my dude. Shade is the MVP of the season. Because the Green Lantern ring, because Jenny's ring revealed 2 sets of smoke, the Shade ain't dead. Like, I refuse to believe the Shade is dead because of the double smoke. So... And they never actually told us because they sent Jenny and Beth to go investigate the second smoke, and we never found out what happened with that either. Like when they went to go check out the second smoke. So like I said, but the Shade ain't dead. Like I don't buy that bullshit. I don't buy that whole thing. He's not dead. But then then after that, then like Barbara hugged Courtney and everybody was together again. And then Cindy was standing there and she was just like, so now that we're all back, who wants to kill Eclipso? And then everybody just kind of like looked at her. That's how the episode ended. So the hunt for Eclipsos, and I did see the coming attractions for the next episode where Cindy is basically trying to talk to Beth and Yolanda and Rick and everybody. Well, not Rick, but she's trying to talk to everybody about doing what needs to be done to take out Eclipso. And I guess and then it's funny because, she went to go speak to Yolanda about it, and Yolanda, for some reason, she's back on the team, and even if she's not back on the team, she was giving Courtney a hard time about Cindy. And I'm just like, first of all, you quit, but then we all know that Beth's not going to be the one to pull the trigger. So that's going to be an awkward conversation. So Cindy's in the mix now, and it's going to be weird. Like I said, I do wish, because we saw the Fiddler's son, because we saw, like the Magic family, I kind of wish that those characters would have came out of the screen too when the Shade put his hand up, but they weren't really real, so we're not going to get that, which is sad because I like to see everybody. Where's Artemis? Like, Artemis ran from Eclipso and then we never see her ass since. Like, Artemis is still running. Like, this is crazy to me, but she's going to pop up in the season finale and she's going to be a hero too, and she's going to join the JSA. That's it. So that was it, and thank you for tuning in. Leave your questions, comments, and or concerns about Stargirl. We have 2 episodes left. 2 episodes of summer school left, so we'll see what happens then. We'll see what the plan is to take out Eclipso, and we'll see what Eclipso's endgame is, because is he just going to be around terrorizing everybody or not? Share your thoughts, your questions, your comments, and your concerns below, and we shall talk about it. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram. Hit me up on YouTube as always, where you can definitely throw up some comments, and then we can go back and forth and trade, conversation about all this DC goodness. Hit the notification bell so you'll get notified when I have other videos pop up, because again, Supergirl's almost over as well. We're doing Supergirl. I believe Supergirl and Stargirl are going to end at the same time, but Batwoman's back, Legends of Tomorrow's back, Doom Patrol is like midway through, and Young Justice just started, and we doing that too. So thanks for checking, thanks for tuning in, everybody. So until next time, for some Stargirl action, for the Shadowlands, for the Shade, take care, and I'm out this bitch.